Welcome to the Career Advantage Show, where we help you reclaim your career power and design your working life on your terms. I'm Tony Pisanelli, and each week I sit down with leaders who have faced career-defining moments, such as a devastating job loss, burnout, stagnation, or even workplace harassment, and being able to turn these difficult circumstances into powerful and greater opportunities. You're listening to the Career Advantage Show. I am your host, Tony Pisanelli. My mission is to help professionals reclaim their career power and design a working life on their terms. Today's special guest is John North.
G'day.
Welcome, John.
How you doing?
Great, thank you. So, John, you are a best-selling author and a seasoned entrepreneur. So you worked extensively in finance and banking, John. So can you tell me how your early days or those days in that world has shaped you in terms of what you're doing today?
The funny thing about working in a bank is they make you follow a process. So you can't just do whatever you want in the bank. You've got to, you got to balance the cash a certain way. You've got to talk to people a certain way. You've got to do everything a certain way. So the bank gave me a really good grounding in processes. Customer complaints is one of the other big ones that most people don't know about how to deal with. So it gave me a really good business background. The funny thing with the bank is they'll make you think, and this is probably topical to your conversation, that they're only useful to them because they've trained you on this and you could only do it in the bank, right? What I realized was all these skills they gave me, all the training, they spent a fortune on me in training over the years, was actually really valuable in the marketplace. Like trustworthy, knowing to keep your mouth shut, right? Things like that are very important in business. So all those things were like, I was only 15 when I joined the bank, so I got an entire education that the education system never gave me, that how to actually operate as a business.
Can you pick one specific defining moment in your banking career, John, that you carry with you today?
I've got tons, but some are not suitable for print. But I think the thing what happened to me was when I worked for bank like 12 years. So what happened was I was working on a business on the side towards the end there, and my dream job that I got, like I was one of the youngest manager assistants in Queensland at the time. I got this job 2-3 years earlier than anybody else because the bank was very age-based. Like you had to be 28 to do this and you had to be 30 to do this. And so I was much, much younger. And so I got my dream job. But the trouble was I didn't get my dream manager. So I got this guy that was absolutely hopeless. Like he was so scared about lending money. He was a commercial lender, wouldn't lend money, really stressful, check you all the time, like drove me insane. And so in the end, I was happy to resign because I'd had enough. I didn't get my dream job. I'd got all that time wanting that job, trained for it, and then the guy I couldn't work with him. We called him Bladders because he was such an old woman. Like he when he addressed a box to send out a box to someone one day, I saw him. He wrote the address on every side of the box, just in case it got lost. Like that's the sort of thing that encapsulated this guy. I just couldn't work with him in the end, so I quit and I went and started my own IT business.
So the bureaucracy got to you? Is that what you're saying, John?
The people, like I think it said, they reckon you stay for a manager and leave for a manager. Because I'm the manager's assistant. The guy I'm working with is the manager. He's 90% of my time I spend with him. He talks to the customers, I don't. So I'm dealing with this guy all the time, every day. You got to like him. You got to be able to work with him. And all the managers I dealt with, all the years I'd had, some really shit managers. This guy was the worst because he wasn't going to do anything I wanted to do. Wouldn't even lend money. He didn't want to lend money. He was a manager, commercial lending manager who didn't want to lend any money because it'd be risky. You might get into trouble.
That was the bank's business, was lending money.
I know, that's why I was frustrated. Because this guy, and so he was looking for ways. Like we had a system in the bank where if you go over your lending limit, you have to refer it to head office, and if head office approves it, it's not your fault if it goes wrong. So he probably wasn't far off for retirement, maybe 5 years or less to retirement. So he wanted to get into the last run. He didn't want to get into trouble and lose his, get demoted or anything. So it was all risk, risk, risk. Don't take any risk. Don't lend any money. Don't get into trouble.
It appears to me, John, from what you're saying, and I see this frequently when interacting with my clients, is that you've got an entrepreneurial mindset. You're innovative, you're creative,
Yeah.
you're expansive, you've got big picture thinking, and you're working under someone who's an employee.
Yeah, and at the time, I guess I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but didn't necessarily knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? Until you pushed into it. And to me, it was a way to get away from them, the bureaucracy, and get away from those people because I couldn't. Yeah, in the end, it was a decision to do that, and it was a big risky decision because I didn't have any safety net, didn't have any backup cash really. I had a redundant, payout they gave me, which was a couple of months worth of pay. That was it. So if it didn't last after 2 months, I was doomed. I didn't even own a house. I don't think I even owned a house at the time. Like I was renting. So, I didn't have any safety net. Like I just jumped over the cliff and hoped for the best.
So, John, if today you were speaking to someone in the audience listening to this
Mm.
who's in a job where they're in a similar situation, they feel constrained,
Yep.
can't express themselves fully, and they're looking about jumping ship, what would be the number one piece of advice that you would give them?
Put as much cash away as you can before you start. Because the single biggest stress in business is cash flow. So whatever number you think you need, double it because you'll burn through that money. And so, because the problem with it is less money, more likely to take on clients that are going to not be suitable, right? And so what happens is you take on bad clients, you have cash flow problems, and the whole thing gets on top of you. That's not a great place to be. So you start making decisions about things that way. Whereas you've got a bit of cash behind you and you can be very fussy, the more successful you get, the more often you say no. So most people say yes to everything, particularly you're desperate for the cash. And in my working time over the years, I've said yes to people I should have never said yes to. And I knew I shouldn't have said yes to them. Even no matter what. I doubled my rate once for a client I did not want to do work for, and she still paid me that money. I doubled it. And she still paid me, and I still regretted doing business with her to this day.
Right.
Right.
So your number one piece of advice for someone who's in a similar situation you were those many years ago would be have a strong financial reserve.
Yeah. Yeah. And be prepared that, you'll be able to manage that reserve because you may not necessarily need it, but also don't make it too easy to get to. So don't just put it in the bank and have it there like you'll just spend it. Try to make it a little hard to get to, that you've got to wait a week or wait a few days to get it. Like have the cash, but then you should see these big things coming, right? If you start running out of money, you go, oh, well, I know I'm going to run out of money. I better get some more money out. But if you've got that a little bit harder to get to, that you've got to jump some hoops to get the money, that'll actually force you to go and find the money first, because that's the challenge. And the other piece of advice I always say to people is pay yourself first. So once you're in a situation where you've got money coming in and you've got a reasonable cash flow, start paying yourself something out of that cash. Don't live out of the business. Don't just keep taking money out of the business, living out of the business. Take it so that you've got a separate pay that goes in a bank and you manage your own personal life in there. Don't mix them up, because then it gets very cloudy about what's going on in that business with you even making money. And so to me, that's pay yourself first and then keep increasing the rate to put pressure on yourself to make sales. So that way you've got money coming through. So just, you've got that bucket that you can get to if you really have to, but you use as a last resort. You don't just think, oh, I'll just pull out no money and spend it. I just got this great idea. I'll just go with this. I won't think about it. Because the other one I regret is spending money on things I probably shouldn't have spent it on. I should have thought about it a bit more. Should have spent a couple more days thinking about it before I went and did it. On some of these larger ticket purchases where you might hire a coach or you might pay some advertising, some of it sounds really good when you first look at it, and then 2 or 3 days later, it does not look good at all. And you should just wait a little bit before you spend that big ticket item.
So would you say, John, and I can relate to this, and just tell me whether you agree, that the number one area I found where I've probably burnt more money than has delivered in results is in marketing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you can blow a lot of money on marketing. And the way I look at it sometimes is the cheapest way of marketing you find is usually the most effective, bizarrely. So the really expensive marketing campaigns never tend to work because too much risk in returning. But your low risk guerrilla style marketing that I used to do a long time ago, like stuff that doesn't cost a lot of money, but it seems to work. Like for me, client referral works really good. And I don't necessarily nurture that as much as I could, but it doesn't cost me a lot of money. But you know what? To get it, I had to do a good job for the first client. So I had to invest in that client to start with to keep them happy enough to say to someone else, hey, you did a good job. So we always say to people, I do what I say and say what I do. So that way the client is always going to get number one priority, not screw the client up. Because that's a lot of people do that. They screw the client over thinking, oh, just be another one. But that client could have given you 10 more clients. And so to me, that focus on making sure that client is happy, and that comes from the banking scenario too, because the more accounts you have with the bank, and the happier you keep them, the longer you keep them.
Yes, totally agree. It's far easier to keep your existing client than to find the next one.
And also you can sell more to existing clients. People forget about that existing client. They'll move through and get more and more clients and then go, well, hang on, if I just get back over the old clients, what's going on with them, I wonder? And, I've had a lot of clients come back to me who do like we do book publishing. We'll do a second, third book. And one client did 4 books with us until he got sick of us because basically, so what books are you going to do, right? He's got 4 books. What the hell are you going to do with these books? You start a library. And so it's kind of like you get to a point where there's too many, but normally I've had clients do 2, 3 books. And so because we did the job the first time, good, we'll do another job for him down the track. And I had a guy come back to me 7 years later and do a book with us because he liked the fact that we did it properly for him.
So, John, on that, so you help authors become best-selling authors on Amazon and what have you. Is that what gives you the most joy in your current path, or are there other aspects that you equally enjoy, or if not more so?
Funny. Yeah, there you go. A bit of psychoanalyst going on here, eh? So basically, because I always wanted to be a journalist when I was a kid, and I did all these sort of aptitude tests and stuff. I'd come up to 2 things: be a policeman or a journalist. And I figured I never want to be a policeman. But it's about finding out things, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. So helping people write those books and create something of an asset, to me is like you're creating something from scratch that is telling something to somebody, right? So you're exploring something. But what gives me even more pleasure ultimately is that book sells and someone reads it. To me, that client's now selling books and there's someone's listening to them and they're potentially making money out of it, right? So I've got a client, a doctor client. We sell a lot of different books. The funny thing is we sell half as many, or a quarter of many cure books as treatment books. So, but the treatment books are really popular. And so they're solving people's problems. Like perhaps not necessarily saving lives, but certainly making their lives better. So the result of it, to me, gives you the best outcome. Writing the book and having the book sit on the shelf, great, product finished, but someone reads that book, someone does something with that book, it changes someone's life. To me, that's the final payoff. And the book is a legacy, like it's something that's there forever. So that book will always be there. Nothing else works. Like a little tip, right? You're going to start a business. You wrote a book. You've written a business plan as well in that book. That book becomes your marketing, becomes your system, becomes your business processes. That to me is the best thing you would ever want to do. People say, I'll write a book later. So if you just write a book now and use it as part of your business, then you've already got a sales piece for your business, right? You've already can prove you know what you're talking about, credibility. But at the same time, you've got everything laid out.
I know from previous conversations with you, John, that you're a big believer that one of the key aspects of a business is to build assets.
Yeah, yeah.
A book is a key pillar of that asset base, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, think about renting and buying a house, right? So all social media is just renting, right? They can chuck you out anytime they like. You write a book, you own that asset. So I always say own your website, own stuff, because any other stuff just renting. You're just renting space that can be taken away from you anytime. So, and what a lot of business owners do over the years I've found is they build things, they build these funnels and they build these, websites. And then 6 months later, they destroy it and build another one. What have you done? You just pulled it down and built another house on the same block of land, right? You're not getting any better. You're just wasting time and money rather than focus on how can I just layer on top of this thing? How can I keep building on everything I've built? Like build a book, build a course, build a podcast, build a whatever. Keep building on something. Don't just keep pulling it down and starting again kind of thing. It drives me insane when I see that every time.
Right. Because I know I deal with a number of fellow coaches, and they, John, have their business platform or their training
Mm.
programs on Facebook, for example.
Yeah.
That's not something you're advocating here, are
Excuse
you?
me, French, but that's batshit crazy doing that. Because you could be locked off tomorrow. Like that's the thing I was driving. Like years ago, I was saying this whole thing that, relying on someone else to service your clients when you've got no control over, not paying for it, and you means you're the customer, right? To Facebook, you're the customer there. The reality is that they could take that away from you tomorrow, lock you out of that account just for some stupid reason you're not even real, right? I locked out of Facebook for 3 months at one point, or actually even longer, 6 months, because the reset wasn't working. I couldn't reset the password. That was it. The only problem. Couldn't reset the password. So all my groups and everything I couldn't get into. Like I had a backup access in there, but you lose it all. Like they want you to give them something. It's a bit like Amazon, right? You write a book, put it on Amazon. Amazon's got a book to sell. You put it on Facebook. Facebook's got traffic to sell to that. So you're giving them something of value to actually use to get people to stay on Facebook. So that's not an asset. That's a liability. I reckon. If you want to put it on the ledger, do an accounting discussion, to me, that's a liability, not an asset. It's a threat, right? It's not an opportunity to me because you're not building anything. You lose it tomorrow. It's almost as worse as going to, I don't know, Kajabi and setting all your courses up in Kajabi for 6 or 12 months and then stop paying the subscription and then just delete it all, right? Same principle. You've lost it. It's gone forever.
All right. So would that be the number one piece of advice you would give to someone is make sure you have ownership and control of
Own
your
your own
asset base?
business, own your own stuff, keep control of it, and don't do so, like keep focused on what you're doing and why you're doing it, and stop jumping off ship off another tangent, not taking on some other opportunity that looks good at the time, but it's got nothing to do with what you do. Learn to say no a lot. So focus on what you want to do, keep to it, stick to your plan, because what happens is people jump around. They go, oh, I've got this other opportunity over here. And it's like, that's totally different to what your business is. You've just taken on another opportunity and now you deferred to that for a couple of months while it looks exciting. Well, you leave your own business, sort of languishing, and then it doesn't work. Of course, it won't work. I bet you it won't work. Come back in your own business again. For me to start my book publishing business, the first one I did, I gave away for free. Didn't appreciate it at all. Most unforgiving customers ever. Didn't appreciate it. Why? Couldn't pay for it. Next customer, I've charged them some money. It wasn't a lot, but we did it. And I just increased the price to this day that we, charge a decent amount of money to do a book because we do a damn good job. But if I hadn't kept doing that from the early days, I would have never got into it. I would have just said, oh, it's not going to work. This thing's not going to work. That took me a year, 2 years to get anywhere. But it paid off because I just had to put all these extra shelving in my office to handle all the books we've produced, hundreds of them. But that's in 10 years. In less than 10 years, we've probably done 200 odd book publishing, right? But that very first couple, very shaky. Like I would have thought, oh, it's not going to work, right? I'm not going to get paid for this.
All right. So you're saying to people, pick your core focus. Mine is obviously coaching around the career space and stay with it. Don't go deviating if you're having a bad week or a bad month, correct?
Yeah. Because the question is, did you make a good decision at the start that's what you're going to do? Did you write a book about it? Did you put your, burn your bridges and say, look, this is where I'm going to go? Or is it just like loosely idea, right? Do you really believe in it? Because I tell you what, till you believe in it, no one's going to believe in you. All right. I mean, that's the challenge. Like if you don't really firmly believe that what I'm doing is valuable and worthwhile, you're never going to convince a client of that because he'll see straight through you.
Obviously, there's got to be a market need, doesn't there, John?
Or you make one even. Like there's no reason
Right.
you can't find, some people have made markets for things that you would never thought of, right? And some things you think, whoa, would anybody buy that? But sometimes you've got to remember that logic doesn't always work in this situation. Sometimes you build something that you realize that someone actually wants. I've created a lot of services over the years with like, this would be great. No one bought it, just crickets. But it was part of the core business, right? It's always like, does this fit the core? Does this fit my long-term plan? And then the question is, don't take the money just because it doesn't. So sometimes you got to say, no, I'm not doing it, even though it's going to cost you money, and you probably want that money, but say no. I've said no to clients when I could have said yes, but I knew that wouldn't be my core business. I'd just be off on a tangent. People get distracted too much.
And also, John, how important is it to really understand who your ideal client is?
I think intimately knowing what they want and needs is really important. The challenge is they say to you, "Oh, go and figure out your avatar, work out your best client." I don't think you can do that. Like, I think you thinking who you think your customer is going to be is almost impossible. You can guess it. If you're selling retirement plans, obviously your customer's a certain age, so you can demographically figure them out, right? But like for me, when I was selling accounting software back in the day, I thought my customer was the guy, right? That's what I thought, the guy in business, because typically most people you dealt with, particularly like 20, 30 years ago, a lot more females in business now. Back then, mostly male dominated, and a lot of them were trade based, right? So very male dominated. And so you thought you were selling to the male. You weren't selling to the male, you're selling to the wife, because the wife was the one who's going to be doing the books. The wife was the one that was going to write the check for the writer software, not the guy. And so when I realized that, because my first demographic was, male between such and such a time, when I realized was that you had to actually suck up to the wife. You had to talk to the wife even. Sometimes you didn't talk to her. You didn't talk to him. And he did a shit job at, promoting that business to the, to go buy, they'll buy this accounting software. So I'm not spending that much money, right? And so if you talk to her and actually get her involved, he would just walk away and tell you, it's all on you, see you later, bye, and wasn't the slightest bit interested anymore. So I had that dead wrong. Once I'd actually done it. So I think, again, understanding what your customer, how they feel about it, what their real reason for doing it. If you can figure that out and ask the question, you've got a better idea, their motivation for doing it. So when we talk to someone who wants to do a book, I ask them, what do you want to get out of this? What are you looking to get? Some people go, I just want to publish a book. I don't care if I never sell a single copy. You go, okay, you just want to publish it. That's all you want. Yeah. Oh, glad I asked. Because, I could have been doing all these things about trying to help him sell more books and all that sort of stuff, and he's not the slightest bit interested in doing that. And so sometimes you've got to figure out what the customer really, really wants, and they don't even know themselves half the time.
Right. So, like in my case, when I came to you with my books, it wasn't just so much about the book, John, to be perfectly honest. It was more about the business behind the book.
Exactly. Yeah. So why, right? The why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that?
And is that what you believe gives a business the greatest opportunity, is the business behind the book rather than the sale of the book?
Yeah, because it's really hard. I mean, if you're selling a Harry Potter book, then you've got a better chance in that it's a fiction book and that there's a certain market for those books. I mean, we call them the shirtless guys. If you go to Amazon, you'll see that most of the top selling books on Amazon are romance books. So if you want to get into the book business and you want to write fiction and write romance, because that sells the best by far. But everybody else has to typically write self-help books or some sort of business style books or some sort of thing like that. So very hard to make a lot of money out of that. But what's in the book is either a business around the book or a business in the book. I like the idea of a business in a book because I wrote a book about book publishing secrets for entrepreneurs. The whole business is in that book. So it's very easy. I can take that book and that can be my business. That's my business plan. That's my process. It's all there. I wrote a podcasting secrets book all about podcasting. Guess what? Business is in the book. It's easy to sell. Harder to sell when the business is not in the book, but it's around the book. So coaching is typically that sort of thing. But if you can make money, if a client's worth you 10, like the guy that did 4 books with me, he gave them away for free. He was a LinkedIn guy and he went to conferences and he'd take 2,000 books and give them all away for free. because the money wasn't in the book. It was when they got the book and they went and did LinkedIn services with him. He was built instant credibility by giving them free book.
All right. So for those listening to this, the important distinction is the money is not in the book. It's
No,
in the service and you're offering after the book,
beyond the book. Basically, we call it beyond the book.
beyond the book, yes.
And a lot of people write books don't tend to put that in the book. Like every book I've done in recent times, I'll get the book from the client that's manuscript written. I go, what happens when they've read this book? No clue what happens. No idea. Never thought about it. Never thought about what would happen after they've read the book. Or why they're reading the book, right? Even why they're reading the book. What do I do? What? So then it's inserted later. And so for me, to get someone at an earlier stage where they're just about to start writing the book or they're still finishing it, I go, think about the customer journey. Think about what will happen once they've read the book. What happens after they've read the book? What happens while they're reading the book? How can you interact with them? And that is very rare. I don't think I've ever seen a book done that way that I've ever seen come to me and said, hey, I've written this book. Never seen it. I think I even did with your book, remember? I said, well, what are you going to do with this book? What's going to happen? Oh, yeah, well, let's insert this. We'll put this in. But the second time you did it, what's the first thing you did? You stuck something in the book to take people to do some next steps.
Well, yeah, the second book I did, John, clearly outlines my coaching methodology.
Yeah, exactly.
So that warms the audience or the prospect, does it not?
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes them convinced that you might know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right. Can't be sure until they've read the book or spoken to you, but it gives them a feeling. So I always say to most people do business with you if they just get a sniff that you can help them. That's all they need is a sniff. If they just possibly could help them, that's enough. You don't have to convince them to start with. You just have to give them an idea that it could be possible you could help them. That's all you need. And their book will do that.
John, are you a believer, a bit like your journey and mine, that years, if not decades, in organisational employment gives you knowledge, experience, capability sets
Mm.
that you can then potentially package up in some way, monetize it, and begin a coaching, consulting, speaking business? Do you believe that that's a natural progression if you really are smart about it?
If you're smart about it, the trouble is most people don't think about it that way. Like I never did either. If you said to me when I was 15 that I'd end up being running my own consulting business or publishing business when I was this age, I would have said, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. Like, you don't see the future that far out. So, and it's all circumstantial. Like some stuff happens and you don't expect it. Like lots of things happen in my life that I could have never planned for, but somehow it turns out, right? So it's almost like, there's a higher thing going on. I'm not talking about religion. I'm just talking about just this higher meaning of what's going on here that you don't really quite understand. But things present
Yeah.
in front of you. You go, oh, I'll take advantage of that. But most people don't see it. So I think if you can think that way, great. But typically most people do is they get to a point, they start something, like say they're working as an electrician, and then they go, I've had enough of this. I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm really good at marketing. Maybe I could teach electricians how to market. So you go, okay, I'll make sure I get all this right, and then I'll take that and I'll replicate it and I'll make it work for someone. To me, so it's kind of like looking at what you're doing now, what piece of it could be actually broken off and that you like doing, and could it be something you actually enjoy doing rather than something you have to do? And I think find that piece of passion in it too. Like if you just go, oh, I'm an accountant, I'd start my own accounting business, but I don't really like it, then you're never going to really go that well, right? You're just going to have to do it, either work to live or live to work, right? And to me,
Yeah, I
find
think,
something you're passionate about.
yes, I think you've got to love what it is that you're doing. And I think that's a fair call in
Mm.
your situation, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't get up I always had this theory that the wise man once told me once a very interesting thing. He said, if you keep waking up every day thinking you don't like something, um, and you do that 3 or 4 days in a row, you got to ask the question, do you really should stop? Right? And so if you keep waking up in, oh, geez, I want to go to work, I don't want to do this, I want to do that, week in and you're still doing that, then you've got a serious problem to deal with. Don't put it off. And so that's when it leads to depression or God knows what happens after that, right? So asking yourself, I don't really want to do this. So even in business, sometimes you wake up in the morning and think to yourself, I don't like this business anymore. I hate it. I don't want to deal with people anymore. Well, then change it, right? It's your business. You can do whatever you want. That's what people think. They can't change it. So sometimes you look at your business and go, okay, great. I did this business. It's really good, but I don't like it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. Then what do? Do you sell it or do you reinvent the business and go a different way? Just, the thing is, don't always think that what you're doing is locked in stone. Doesn't mean you have to keep doing that.
All right, John. So if there's someone out there who has come to a point where they would like to write or publish a book
Yeah.
or start their own business and are looking to own their own business platform, how can they find out more about you?
So the best way to find me is probably johnnorth.com.au. So pretty easy to remember. And that's my personal website that has everything I do rather than going to a business website and trying to figure it out. So that's my main personal website. And there we've got all the different things like whether you want to do a book or build a platform or do whatever you want to do. We probably run 30, 40 different types of services, but they all come down to the same thing, publishing. Like publishing content or publishing books. That's what it all comes down to.
Okay, and obviously they can check out your books on...
If you connect to me on LinkedIn, I might even send you some for free.
Perfect. All right. Well, John, thank you for joining me today and providing us with some very powerful insights about your career journey from banking into running your own business.
My pleasure. And hopefully I'll give you something of value for your listeners that can, there's always find one thing. If you learn one thing and do it, then you're laughing.
Yes, I think there's actually a couple of gems in there. So thank you so much. Well, that's a wrap on another inspiring conversation here on the Career Advantage Show. Before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, we'd be so grateful for a 5-star review. Please also share the show with a friend or a colleague who might need a boost in their career journey. And make sure you subscribe to the Career Advantage Show so you'll never miss a future episode. Until next time, remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and design a career you truly want. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Career Advantage Show. Visit thecareeradvantage.show to subscribe and claim your free Career Confidential Toolkit. If you've enjoyed today's episode, I'd truly appreciate a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. And don't forget to share it with your friends and colleagues who might need a little career inspiration.